3, 2, 1. Welcome to Scott Field on the campus of Mississippi State University, where, Steve, today Mississippi State has had two what you would call warm-up type wins, maybe a little more competitive than some thought, but still good solid wins. Now it gets real. Kansas State is in town. Bulldogs, 11 o'clock kickoff today, Power 5 on Power 5, and two teams with a lot to play for. Mississippi State in the rankings, Kansas State knocking on the door.
Yeah, absolutely, David. And this is a game, I think, that might turn out to be a little more competitive than we anticipated early in the year because this team can run the football. And we know Mississippi State has, some weaknesses kind of on the defensive front right now. And I hate to call them a weakness, but that's the reality of it. There's a lot of talent there, but some inexperience. This is a veteran Kansas State line that's going to have five seniors starting and then two grad transfer running backs that rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. This is going to be similar to an SEC-type game.
And we'd say weaknesses. A lot of it's just a comparison. Last year was so great defensively, anything was going to be a step down. Still, Bulldogs have to be a little disappointed how teams have run on them successfully. Maybe not in the total yardage, but they've made some plays, particularly early in games.
Yeah, and one of the things that teams have done, too, is they've spread Mississippi State out and then run at them or around them. This is going to be a different deal. They're going to run some two-back and some two tight end sets, as Errol Thompson told us, which means that Mississippi State will likely run some 4-3 cover 2 rather than the base 4-2-5 type defense, which means Brian Cole will likely not be on the field as much as he normally is. Or
you could rotate Jaquarius Landry and C.J. Morgan as well, because Cole basically is an extra linebacker. And let's talk linebackers, because they haven't had the start to the season you expect. It's very good still, but not the great season you're expecting. Do you anticipate Willie Gay playing today? Would this be the kind of game where you need that linebacker more than, say, you need a veteran defensive tackle?
I would have to think long and hard about it, about playing him today, because of the fact this is going to be a linebacker-centric game, David. This is a team that wants to get downhill in Kansas State and run right at you and kind of blow you off the line. And so these linebackers have a chance to fit some gaps. And, we talk about having that breakout game. This could be that type game. Now, one of the things you remember last year, Errol Thompson had the huge game last year against Kansas State. And while there's some things that are different schematically, personnel-wise, the team is pretty similar to what they were a year ago. And so there's only so much I think that can change in that respect. But, yeah, this is a game that the linebackers from Mississippi State have to have a good game and should have a good game.
Now, we say if because it's about 9:05 as we record this. We have not been handed the list of who is available and not available for today's game. We should have that within the hour, and we'll update the story going along with this video accordingly. All right, let's switch to offensive side. Big question of the week. Does Tommy Stevens play? If he plays, how much does he play? And if he does not play, who takes his place? We don't know. I mean, the Bulldogs have just arrived. They're starting the warm-ups. But until the quarterbacks get out there and we see, A, who's dressed out, and B, who's working in what order, we really won't have a clue.
And people expect us to have this information, Dave. It doesn't always work out. But Tommy Stevens will likely be a game-time decision. Now, we were told earlier in the week that he is expected to play, expected to start. Not sure if he finishes. So we'll see how that plays. And one of the things that we've heard today, you've heard, David, is that one of the Bulldog quarterbacks unlikely to play. So it could be a situation where it's Garrett Schrader or Tommy Stevens, much as people expected, even though Keaton Thompson could add an element to this offense this weekend that could make a difference. But, again, we don't know the agreements made between he and Joe Moorhead. That's one of the things I think a lot of our fans get caught up in. Joe Moorhead has to manage this season and the program for the future and not simply think about what's best for one particular player.
And you certainly would like to have the option of a Keaton Thompson because he's a running quarterback more so than a passer. And last year you saw what the Bulldogs did with a running quarterback. Kylan Hill, 211 yards. Nick Fitzgerald, 159 yards. Now, he's not in that category, but still he's a good running threat. And with a gimpy shoulder, you don't want Tommy Stevens running very often today.
No, you don't, and that's one of the things I think could impact State's play calling early on is you want to limit contact on Tommy Stevens because while people have told us that injury's not going to get worse by simply playing and throwing, another direct hit there could have a prolonged absence in the lineup, and so you're going to be careful with that. What I expect to see, David, is Kylan Hill used in a variety of ways. I don't think it'll be as simple as handing it off. Kylan Hill has proven to be a very skilled receiver out of the backfield, and with Kansas State somewhat hurting at linebacker, I could see them matching him up out in the flats and out in space, possibly a wheel route here or there, just to utilize him as a weapon.
Well, you'll remember last year at Kansas State, Mississippi State used the tight ends early, and the first touchdown of the game was a pass play from Nick Fitzgerald to Kylan Hill. So if Fitzgerald can hook it up, and I think he was 11 of 27 passing, you feel better about the chance of the passing game working today if, again, Tommy Stevens is fully ready. But Garrett Schrader showed last week he could throw a pretty nice pass too.
He could. The issue last week with Schrader was really more about protections. There were some times he couldn't necessarily gets you out of a bad play and into a good play, and that's just experience, David. You know, Tommy Stevens, while he has not had a lot of college snaps, he's a guy that's been in a college program, has seen college film review over and over and over. So that's something we're still working through. But Garrett Schrader, skilled enough to go out here and get the Bulldogs a win if it's required from him today.
Quickly, you've told me you don't expect a big recruiting visit this weekend. This is probably because of the start time. 11 o'clock is really tough for guys who played on Thursday and Friday nights to get here.
Yeah, it is, especially we'll have the usual suspects from around the area here, and a lot of Mississippi State commitments were already committed to be here. So we'll have a lot of guys here in that respect. Some of those junior college guys played on Thursday. They'll make it today. But it's just difficult at times. You know, you play a ball game Friday night, then you've got to get treatment, then you get up and you got to make a drive up here. And the players don't just show up at 11 o'clock. You know, they get here a little bit early and they go to the locker room, and there's some other events that take place. And so it's just difficult with the 11 a.m. kick to get prospects here. But we're going to have daytime football the whole month of September for Mississippi State.
Which means next week, 3 o'clock kickoff against the University of Kentucky to complete this three-game trifecta on Scott Field. Also, though, it's the start of SEC season, but the Bulldogs are all thinking now about how do they handle a Power 5 opponent, Kansas State. All right, for our game coverage today, we were talking about recruiting visits. Paul Jones will be tracking who is here as best he can dig up from both watching the sidelines and players he's been in contact with. Steve will be on Twitter and social media as well. Robbie Falk will be running our game thread. And post-game, we'll have a lot of material to talk about. Hopefully another Bulldog win. We'd maybe not expect a 31-10 victory like we had last year in Manhattan, but all things considered, we both think the Bulldogs will win today.
Yeah, I do, David. I think it'll be a close ball game, but I think it'll be one of those things, too, where if State can get Kansas State off schedule, you got to win on first down, put them in some second and third and longs, force their quarterback to throw the football, and that's not really the strength of this team. But you put the game in his hands, and I don't know that he's capable of coming out here and winning on the road in this heat.
So check us out on Gene's Page 24/7 during the course of today's game, as well as on Dogspite Mag on Twitter. We'll be updating the players available, the players ruled out for today's game, and other information as the game goes on. For our crew from Gene's Page 24/7 on Scott Field, this is David Murray.